We stand at a precipice in time, at a moment where the weight of uncertainty presses upon us. The tides are shifting, the winds of change are howling, and yet in the midst of it all, there is a glimmer of something greater than ourselves, a force, a presence that cannot be ignored. God's blessing is about to flip. In every moment of struggle, every time we've felt lost or adrift, we've always been told that God's grace is abundant, that His mercy is boundless, and yet we often fail to grasp just how powerful those blessings truly are. We seek answers in the wrong places, we chase fleeting comforts, and we lose sight of the fact that something incredible is about to unfold. But now we feel it, something's about to flip. What does it mean when God's blessing flips? It means that those times of hardship, those seasons of waiting are not in vain. It means that what we thought was impossible is about to become reality. It means that doors that seemed forever closed will open wide and opportunities will come rushing in like a flood. But it's not just about material wealth or tangible success. It's about transformation on a deeper spiritual level. God is about to turn things around, not just in our lives, but in the hearts of humanity. We have seen too many moments of division, confusion, and despair. But when God's blessing flips, it has the power to heal, to unite, to restore. We will witness breakthroughs, not just in our personal lives, but in our communities, in our nations, and in the world. The unexplainable will become clear. The prayers we've whispered in the darkest hours will be answered, and the hopes we once let go of will rise again, stronger than ever before. But with this flipping comes a call to action. God's blessings aren't just gifts, they are invitations to act with purpose, to live with intent, and to share that light with others. When we experience the shift, we must recognize that we are chosen to be vessels of change. We are called to uplift, to guide, and to serve with the same grace we've been given. So, as the blessing flips, let us not stand by idly. Let us step forward with faith, knowing that the tides are turning in our favor. Let us believe in the impossible, because when God is involved, nothing is beyond reach. Let us be vessels of His grace, carrying forward His love and light, ready for the changes that are about to unfold. The time is now. God's blessing is about to flip, and we are right on the edge of something extraordinary. The world is waiting for us to step into it, with hearts full of faith and hands ready to build what is to come. So, let us rise. Let us embrace what is coming with open hearts, with eyes of hope, and with a spirit that is unshaken by the trials that may have come before. For in this moment, God is flipping the script, and we are part of the story. Let's be ready to see it unfold. We find ourselves standing at a pivotal moment in time, a point of transition that holds the weight of something extraordinary. The world around us feels as if it's on the edge of something significant, as if the forces of uncertainty and change are finally giving way to a new wave of blessing that is about to pour in. In times like these, it's easy to feel unsettled, overwhelmed, or even discouraged. But if we pause and take a moment to reflect, we'll see that this very uncertainty is a sign of transformation, a powerful prelude to the abundant blessings that are on their way. This is not a moment of fear, but one of opportunity, a season of change that brings with it the promise of something greater than we can even imagine. As we look at the world, it's clear that we are in a time of great upheaval. Everywhere we turn, we see evidence of struggle and division, moments of tension that seem insurmountable. The road ahead may appear daunting, and at times it may seem like hope is nowhere to be found, but it is precisely in these moments when the weight of the world feels unbearable that God's grace moves the most. Change, though often accompanied by discomfort, is a powerful force of renewal. And just as the world around us shifts and adjusts, so too are we, being prepared for something far beyond what we might expect. This moment of transition is not to be feared. It is a call to action, an invitation to rise above our circumstances and to look with eyes of faith toward the horizon. We may not always understand the path that lies before us, but we can rest assured that God's timing is perfect, and He is working even when we cannot see it. He is orchestrating a season of transformation, of personal growth, of spiritual renewal, and of a collective awakening that will bring us into alignment with His greater purpose. God is not distant in these moments of uncertainty. He is closer than ever, moving in ways that we may not always perceive, but are nonetheless real and powerful. In this season, there is an undeniable sense of opportunity to grow, to evolve, to embrace new beginnings. The time of waiting, of wondering, is coming to an end. The door that was once closed will swing wide open, and the opportunities that we thought had passed us by are suddenly within reach. This is a season where everything that once seemed impossible now appears within the realm of possibility. The blessing that we've been waiting for is just around the corner, and God is preparing us to step into it, ready to receive what has been promised. Yet this moment of transformation is not merely about receiving blessings in the form of material wealth or success. It's about a deeper, more profound shift, one that touches every area of our lives, from our relationships to our own inner selves. The blessing that is coming is not just a change in our circumstances, it is a change in who we are. As we move forward, we will find that we are not the same people we were at the beginning of this journey. God's blessing is about growth that takes us from the limitations of the present into the fullness of what we are meant to become. This season of change and opportunity requires us to adjust our mindset, to see the world through a new lens. Rather than seeing the obstacles and struggles as hindrances, we must begin to view them as stepping stones, each one a necessary part of our journey. What once seemed like a setback may, in fact, be the very thing that propels us forward into the blessing that is waiting. God does not waste any experience, no matter how difficult or challenging it may seem. Everything we've been through has been preparing us for this moment. Our struggles have shaped our character, strengthened our faith, and refined our hearts, so that when the time comes, we will be ready to walk into the fullness of His blessings with open hands and hearts. As the world around us shifts, we are being invited to shift as well. This is not just a season of passive waiting, it is a season of active participation. We are not mere bystanders in this process of transformation, but active participants in the unfolding of God's plan. Each of us has a role to play in this greater story. We must take responsibility for our own actions, for our faith, and for the way we respond to the changes that are happening. It is easy to feel overwhelmed by the unknown, but when we take each step with faith and trust in God's sovereignty, we will find that He is guiding us every step of the way. But the opportunity before us is vast and limitless. We are entering a season where God is calling us to step out in faith, to embrace the new beginnings that are emerging in our lives, and to move forward with courage and confidence. The blessing that is about to be poured out is not just for us to enjoy in isolation, but for us to share with others. As we experience the transformation and opportunity that God is bringing into our lives, we are also being called to be a blessing to those around us, to uplift and encourage, to share the hope and light that God has placed within us. This moment, though uncertain, is one of immense potential. It is the threshold of something new, a time of great promise and incredible opportunity. Change, though often uncomfortable, is the beginning of something beautiful. We are in the midst of a season of transition, but we are not alone in it. God is with us, working in ways we may not fully understand, but trust that He is leading us towards something greater. The blessing that is about to flip is not just a distant hope, it is a present reality, and the time to receive it is now. So let us stand firm in our faith, ready to embrace the transformation and opportunity that lies ahead, knowing that God is making all things new. We often find ourselves in seasons where life feels overwhelming, where challenges seem insurmountable, and where it seems like the odds are stacked against us. In these moments, It's easy to question where God is, why things aren't going as we planned, and whether his promises are truly still valid. Yet even in our darkest hours, there is an undeniable truth that remains constant. God's blessing is abundant. His grace and mercy have never left us, even when we couldn't see them. And though we might have experienced struggles, setbacks, and moments of doubt, there is a time coming when his blessings will manifest in ways we could never have imagined. This is not just a fleeting hope, but a deep, unshakable reality. Throughout our lives, we've encountered trials that tested our faith, stretched our patience, and at times made us question everything we believed. Life has a way of throwing obstacles our way, making us feel as though the light at the end of the tunnel is too distant to reach. But God's grace is different from the kind of grace we often experience in our relationships with others. It's not conditional on our actions or our circumstances. It's boundless, unearned, and relentless. His mercy, unlike ours, doesn't run out, and it doesn't fade. The difficulties we face are real, but they don't negate the reality of his presence in our lives. Even when we couldn't see his hand working behind the scenes, he was there, quietly moving in ways we often overlook. God's grace is not just something we experience in the big dramatic moments of life. It's present in the mundane, in the quiet moments where we feel like we're doing nothing special. It's in the breath we take each morning, the strength we find to get through each day, and the comfort we receive when we feel utterly alone. Often we miss the daily blessings because they don't come with fanfare or fireworks. But every step we take, every challenge we overcome, every moment we choose to keep moving forward, these are all evidence of God's grace at work. He doesn't leave us alone in our suffering. He carries us through it, though we may not always recognize the journey he's guiding us on. In those times when it feels like God is silent or distant, we need to remember that his blessing is not dependent on our immediate circumstances or our understanding. There is a tendency to believe that when things aren't going well, God's favor has somehow left us. But that could not be further from the truth. His favor, his blessing, is not measured by our outward success or lack thereof. God's blessing is often in the unseen, the things we can't immediately quantify or it's in the way we are still able to find peace in the chaos, to have hope in the midst of despair, and to find strength when we are weak. God's mercy is abundant, even when we are unaware of it. The beautiful truth is that God's blessings don't just come when we're good enough or when we've reached some ideal place in our lives. His blessing is not a reward for perfect behavior, but a gift of his love. His grace doesn't depend on our performance, but on his unchanging nature. And as much as we might feel like we're not worthy, his mercy is greater than any of our failings. God's blessing isn't something we earn, it's something we receive. In our moments of weakness, he provides strength. In our moments of doubt, he gives peace. And when we feel like we've lost everything, he holds us and promises that his provision is never far from us. But as much as God's grace is ever present, it's easy to forget just how abundant it is. We can become so fixated on what's going wrong that we lose sight of the countless ways he is blessing us every day. Sometimes we need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture, the things that might have gone unnoticed. For every disappointment or hardship, there have been countless small blessings. The friends who've walked beside us, the opportunities for growth disguised as challenges, the small moments of joy that remind us that God's love is constant and unwavering. These are the moments where his blessing shines brightest, not in the absence of difficulty, but in the midst of it. In the Bible, we see countless examples of God's abundance. From the provision of manna in the wilderness to the miraculous feeding of the 5,000 to the way he restored the broken lives of his people, God has always been in the business of abundance. His blessings overflow, sometimes in ways that we can't immediately understand, but always in ways that are precisely what we need. God doesn't give us just enough to get by. He gives us more than enough because His blessings are intended to sustain us, to encourage us, and to push us beyond our own limitations. When we trust in His timing and His plan, we begin to see just how much He has been providing for us all along. And now, as we stand in this season of uncertainty, we are on the cusp of seeing those blessings unfold in ways that go far beyond what we could have anticipated. We've endured challenges, and in many ways, we've been refined through the fire. But now, God is about to reveal the fullness of His blessing. What seemed impossible is about to become possible. What seemed like a dead end is about to turn into a new beginning. And we will see in a way that we couldn't have imagined before just how abundant God's grace truly is. God's blessings aren't just about the material things that we might gain, but about the transformation that happens in us when we realize how deeply we are loved and cared for. When we fully understand the depth of God's mercy, we can't help but be changed. His blessing is not just a gift we receive, but a call to share His grace with others. It compels us to extend mercy to those around us, to show kindness, and to live with a heart full of gratitude for the abundance we've been given. As God's blessings pour into our lives, we are called to let them overflow, touching the lives of others in profound and lasting ways. Though we have faced struggles, challenges, and moments of deep pain, God's grace has been with us all along, quietly preparing us for the blessings that are coming. His mercy is abundant, and it's about to manifest in ways that we never could have anticipated. As we step into this new season, let us trust that God's grace will carry us through, and that His blessings are just beginning to unfold. Life is filled with moments of growth and change, but often we find ourselves fixated on the external factors that define success: material gain, career advancement, financial stability, or societal recognition. These things, though significant in their own right, are not the full measure of God's blessings. The real power of transformation lies in the unseen, the internal shift that takes place deep within our hearts and souls. When we talk about God's blessing flipping, we are not merely referring to a sudden change in our external circumstances. We are talking about a profound spiritual awakening, a transformation that reshapes us from the inside out. This is the true power of God's blessings, the ability to bring about deep, meaningful change that aligns us more fully with His purpose for our lives. True transformation is not just a change in how we live or what we have, it's a change in who we are. It's easy to focus on what's visible and tangible, but God's work in our lives often takes place quietly, in the depths of our being. It's in the moments when we learn to forgive, when it feels impossible, when we extend grace to others even though we feel unworthy of it ourselves. It's in the moments when our perspective shifts from seeing ourselves as victims of our circumstances to recognizing that we are empowered by the love of a God who is for us. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's a process. But it's a process that God actively engages in, working in us and through us to mold us into who He has called us to be. And God's blessing flips. It is not simply an instant fix to the problems we may be facing. Instead, it is an invitation into a deeper relationship with Him, a call to move beyond superficial desires and to seek the kind of growth that only He can provide. We all go through seasons of struggle, moments where we question our purpose, where we feel overwhelmed by the weight of life's challenges. But these moments are not meant to break us. They are meant to transform us. They are the soil in which the seeds of our spiritual growth are planted. In those times of hardship, we are given the opportunity to lean into God in ways we might never have otherwise, to trust Him when nothing makes sense, and to allow Him to refine us. This process of spiritual transformation often begins in the quiet moments, the moments when we feel unsure, lost, or broken. It's in those moments of vulnerability that we are invited to surrender, to let go of our own plans and allow God's greater plan to unfold. The act of surrender is powerful because it is in those moments that we let go of the need for control and open ourselves to God's shaping. It's not about forcing a change, but about allowing the Holy Spirit to work in us. This kind of transformation happens in the most intimate spaces of our hearts, where we are no longer relying on our own strength, but on God's. When we stop striving to fix everything on our own and begin to surrender to God's will, transformation happens naturally. As we grow spiritually, our outlook on life changes. We begin to see things differently. We stop measuring success by the standards of the world and start to see the beauty in humility, service, and selflessness. We begin to value relationships over material wealth, joy over possessions, and peace over recognition. This shift in values is one of the clearest signs of spiritual transformation. God's blessings, when they flip, often bring with them a deep awareness that the things we once thought were important are not as vital as we once believed. True peace and fulfillment are found in a life surrendered to God's purpose, not in the pursuit of external accolades or success. The blessings we receive from God are not meant to be hoarded. They are meant to be shared. They lead us toward generosity, kindness, and compassion for others. We learn that true wealth is found in how we give, not in what we accumulate. This transformation also affects our relationship with others. When our hearts are changed by God's blessings, we begin to see people as He sees them, with love, compassion, and grace. We stop holding on to grudges, and instead we find the strength to forgive, to extend mercy even when it's undeserved. We start to see the world through a lens of empathy, recognizing that every person we meet is fighting battles of their own. This change in perspective is a powerful part of the transformation that happens when God's blessing flips. It shifts the way we interact with the world. It teaches us to be more patient, more kind, and more understanding. It softens our hearts, making us more willing to reach out and help others in their time of need. This kind of transformation is not just about personal growth. It's about becoming a vessel of God's love and grace in the world. But transformation doesn't just affect our relationships with others, it also changes our relationship with ourselves. As we grow spiritually, we begin to see ourselves through God's eyes. We begin to recognize our worth not because of what we have accomplished or the titles we hold, but because of the love God has for us. This realization brings with it a deep sense of peace. We no longer measure our worth by our mistakes or shortcomings, but by God's unshakable love for us. We begin to accept ourselves fully with all our flaws and imperfections, knowing that we are fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of our Creator. This self-acceptance is a powerful part of the transformation that God brings into our lives. When we know who we are in Christ, we no longer need to prove ourselves to the world. We find peace in simply being who God created us to be. The transformation that comes from God's blessing flipping is not always easy, but it is always worth it. It's a journey of growth, of learning to let go of old patterns, old ways of thinking, and to embrace a new way of living. This kind of transformation doesn't just change us on the surface, it changes the very core of who we are. It reorients our lives, our priorities, and our purpose. It takes us from a place of striving and self-sufficiency to a place of surrender and dependence on God. And in that surrender, we find true freedom, the freedom to live fully, to love deeply, and to serve others with joy. God's blessing is about far more than material gain. It is about the transformation of the heart and soul. When God's blessing flips, it is an invitation to experience a deeper, more meaningful life, one that is aligned with His will and purpose. It's a journey of personal growth that leads to a deeper relationship with God and a more profound love for others. Through this transformation, we become the people God created us to be, and in doing so, we are able to walk in the fullness of His blessing. There are times in life when the world feels fragmented, torn apart by division, strife, and despair. Whether it's within our personal relationships, our communities, or on a global scale, it seems that conflict and separation are often more visible than unity and peace. These divisions, whether born out of misunderstanding, fear, or hurt, create walls between people that seem impossible to break down. Yet, in the midst of this fragmentation, there is a promise that speaks to the very core of our hearts. God's blessing is about to flip. When this happens, it's not just about personal blessings or individual success. It's about something much deeper, something that has the power to heal and restore the brokenness in our relationships, our communities, and even our nation. The flipping of God's blessing isn't just about material wealth or personal advancement. It's about restoration and reconciliation. God's blessings are inherently healing. They carry within them the power to mend what has been broken, to restore what has been lost, and to bring peace where there has been conflict. When we experience God's blessing in its fullness, it has the capacity to heal the divisions that separate us from one another, whether it's the personal pain of a broken relationship, the societal rifts that divide communities, or the larger fractures between nations. God's blessing brings the hope of healing and the possibility of unity. Healing in relationships is often one of the most profound ways that God's blessing manifests. We all experience conflict at some point in our lives, misunderstandings with friends or family, unresolved issues with loved ones, or even deep wounds caused by betrayal or hurtful words. These issues, if left unaddressed, can fester and grow, creating deep divides that seem impossible to cross. However, when God's blessing flips, there is a shift in how we view one another and how we approach the process of healing. We are reminded that God has always been a God of reconciliation, and He longs for us to experience peace in our relationships. His blessing allows us to forgive when it feels impossible, to offer grace even when it is undeserved, and to extend mercy where there has been offense. Through this divine healing, we are able to rebuild trust, restore broken bonds, and create relationships that are marked by love, understanding, and mutual respect. But the healing that comes with God's blessing doesn't just stop at the individual level. It extends to communities and entire societies. Communities often experience division due to social, political, or cultural differences, whether it's racial tension, economic disparity, or ideological conflict. These divisions create an atmosphere of hostility, mistrust, and even hatred. In these moments, it can seem as though peace and unity are out of reach, yet when God's blessing flips, the potential for healing on a larger scale is unleashed. His blessing brings forth the possibility of reconciliation between groups that have been torn apart by hatred or misunderstanding. It empowers us to see beyond our differences and to recognize the shared humanity that connects us all. In a world that often seeks to divide, God's blessing calls us to be agents of healing, to actively pursue peace, and to work towards unity. One of the most beautiful aspects of God's blessing is its ability to transcend boundaries. It is not limited by race, class, or nationality. It is a blessing that reaches across every divide and speaks to the heart of every human being. When God's blessing flips, it challenges us to step out of our comfort zones, to seek common ground with those we once viewed as enemies, and to build relationships based on love and respect rather than division and fear. The unity that comes through God's blessing is not a superficial harmony, but a deep, authentic peace that allows us to embrace our differences while recognizing that we are all part of the same human family. On an even larger scale, God's blessing has the potential to bring healing to nations. The world is full of conflict, wars, political instability, economic inequality, and countless other issues that keep nations divided. Often it feels as though peace is an unattainable ideal, a dream that is impossible to achieve. Yet, The flipping of God's blessing holds the power to bring about a restoration of peace between nations. God's blessing is not confined to the walls of a church or the boundaries of a single country. It is global in its reach, meant to bring healing to the world at large. When God's blessing flips, it is not only an opportunity for individuals and communities to heal, but also for nations to be restored, for old animosities to be forgiven, and for new pathways of peace to be forged. This transformation requires a willingness on our part to see beyond our own interests and to consider the well-being of others. It calls us to engage with the world in a way that prioritizes peace and reconciliation over division and discord. When God's blessing begins to flip, it shifts the hearts of individuals, and in turn, those individuals work together to bring about change in their communities and nation. God's healing touch brings about a new way of thinking, one that seeks understanding, compassion, and cooperation instead of anger, bitterness, and hostility. The healing that comes with God's blessing is not always immediate, and it's not always easy. It requires patience, humility, and a willingness to confront our own biases and fears. But it is real, and it is transformative. When we open ourselves to God's blessing, we make room for His healing power to work in our lives and in the lives of others. The process of healing may be gradual, and it may require us to take difficult steps toward reconciliation, but as we allow God's blessing to flow through us, we begin to see the walls of division come down and the seeds of unity take root. In this season of God's blessing flipping, we are being called to be instruments of healing and unity. We are called to actively pursue peace, to extend forgiveness, and to seek reconciliation wherever there is division. We are reminded that God's love is bigger than any conflict or misunderstanding, and His power to heal is greater than any rift that might divide us. As God's blessing flips, let us be agents of restoration, working together to create a world that reflects His peace and unity. The promise of healing and unity is not a distant hope. It is a present